Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a very unique episode of the Metal Meltdown. What originally started off as a collaboration between Heaviest of Art's TyTilly and myself reviewing the new Atramentus record very quickly evolved into an accidental podcast, for lack of a better way of putting it, in which we discussed funeral doom, the landscape of modern doom metal, bands like Pallbearer, Yob, Spirit Adrift, Evoken. At one point we got derailed almost entirely and started ranting about the works of one Rick Rubin. Definitely one of the most unorthodox things I've ever put on the Metal Meltdown, but honestly, I don't know if I'd want it any other way. So with that spirit in mind, here is our full conversation with no editing whatsoever, no trimming whatsoever. Get yourself a drink, sit back, enjoy, contribute to the conversation in the comments. Let us know how you felt about this new Atramentus record, how you feel about the modern landscape of doom metal altogether, and thanks for watching. Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today, we are looking at the debut album from a new project from Atramentus entitled Stygian. And here's the thing, folks. I'm not much of a funeral doom guy. I mean, contrary to popular belief, I don't hate the genre, but it's also definitely not my favorite. So as interested as I was in this, I didn't know if I had the expertise to really talk about it. So that's why we have our very first special guest. I mean, we had guests here, but never for an album review. Introduce yourself, good sir.
How's it going, everybody? My name's Tyson, and Robert and I have kind of shot the shit back and forth for quite a few years now, right? Over social media and here on YouTube. I just I'm a regular guy that lives down in southern Utah, soon to be in northern Utah, and I write for a music review website called Heaviest of Art. It's a really kind of a website that, we obviously review a lot of different kinds of music, but one of the things that we do at Heaviest of Art is we focus more, like the namesake says, the artistic side of heavy music, whether it be in a genre like what we're going to be discussing, or if it's going to be like, death rock, or, the darker side of industrial, whatever it may be. But, I'm super excited to be on here with you, man.
Happy to have you here, man. And I mean, it really has been years. I actually remember, and this is years back, but I remember when, what was it, Elders Reflections of a Floating World came out.
Yes.
Because that was the point you reached out to me, and you were like, hey man, I'm this person. Have you heard this album? You better have, because it's my favorite thing ever. And I think at that point I was just kind of like, yeah, man, because I was always told never respond to comments from anyone online because they're always bad. Yeah. But I mean, since then I've realized, hey, it's a very stupid idea not to engage with people who want to engage with you. So now we've engaged, and I would go as far as just consider us friends, even though we've never met.
Hell yeah, dude. I mean, I've got homies that I've got another friend up in Canada that I've never met, and he and I are just like, we'll hit each other up all the time regarding just random BS. Like our one thing we're just dying for is hopefully in the future vinyl reissues of two of Paradise Lost's early 2000 records. And I mean, I've never met him, but I consider him a friend, and I totally consider you a friend as well, even though we're nearly half a world away.
Is it the Instagram user L Triple by chance?
Yes, it is.
Because I know the guy.
Him.
Yeah, I don't know him personally. I don't know him personally, mind you, but I follow him as well, and we'll chat about vinyl now and then as well.
Oh yeah, Martin has probably one of the sickest collections, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, absolutely. It kind of blows my mind. And he's always posting stuff about, what other record companies are putting out. I find out about new vinyl through him. So shout out to L Triple. You're a great guy.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal dude. It's funny because I think he actually is really good friends with Drew Juergens from Relapse, and that's kind of it was. I kind of held it as I kept as a really well guarded secret for few months that when Relapse did those disembowelment reissues, I kept holding on to that for a while, and I'm just like, oh boy, I can only tell a few people that I'm like, all right, because everybody was like, okay, I really wish that disembowelment stuff would get reissued, and I'm like,
you're sitting there, you're sitting there like clenching your fists, like,
Yeah, it's like that meme where the kid's sitting in that classroom with his giant forehead vein like bulging out.
Trying to go 5 minutes without talking about disembowelment.
Oh yeah, like it's just like, oh, I want to tell everyone.
You know what we should tell everyone about? We should tell everyone about this album, Stygian from Atramentus.
Oh, yes. I highly agree.
This record, for those of you somehow unaware, I find that hard to believe considering everyone's talking about it, but let's assume for a moment you live under a rock. Atramentus is the latest project from one Philip Tugas? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
I think it's Tugas, but I've never really heard him, say otherwise, but yeah, I would assume that's how you say it. I don't know how the French pronounce their names.
Yeah, I fucking failed my French class in high school, so I'm probably not the person to ask. But yeah, I
took Spanish, so.
Phil, he may not be a household name, but I promise you, if you're familiar with extreme music, you've heard at least one project from him, because he's been everywhere and done everything. He's in a tech death band called First Fragment. He's in death metal bands like Funebrom and Chitellist? However that's pronounced.
Yeah, I think it's Cathilist, but yeah, I've heard so many different ways of saying it. I think it's kind of like, how, ironically enough, we're talking about this on Lovecraft's birthday, and, Lovecraft never really gave a correct way to pronounce, like, Cthulhu and stuff like that, so I think they've left it up to the interpretation of the listener.
I actually didn't even know that. God,
yeah.
It might not even be pronounced Cthulhu. It could be pronounced something else entirely. Holy shit.
Yeah, I think he even said it's so like weird and like guttural the way you say it that I don't know. It is weird though, but yeah, it's odd.
Point is, Phil's been all over the place. He's been active for many a year. But Atramentus, at least as far as I can tell from what's here on the Encyclopedia Metallum, Atramentus predates most, if not all of this. A lot of this material was written as far back as 2010, and it has simply been on the back burner for pretty much this entire decade. I don't personally know why. Do you know why, Tyson? Is there like a family reason or a personal reason why this was delayed?
I think I haven't really dove much into it, but I think the reason being is, first and foremost, Phil is literally one of the busiest motherfuckers on the planet. Like, that is no question.
Yeah.
I mean, with putting together Cathilist and, like, taking them to a few places. I mean, Cathilist finally played their first show in, like, a few years when they played if I remember correctly, they were supposed to play Killtown Deathfest this year in Copenhagen, but obviously we all know why that didn't happen.
Obviously, because they were too cool to play there.
Yeah.
No pandemic.
Everybody knew that Cathilist would just open up a cosmic wormhole and the Elder Gods would just come through and just start taking everyone. But I think it had something to do with the fact that he was just so busy with putting together Cathilist, and then he was also doing Cosmic Atrophy, and he was also in the band that his father and uncle are in called DDT, which are more of like a speed metal band, because Phil's a huge like old school shred and speed metal aficionado, and I think also one of the guys that's in Atramentus as well is also in the band Gevera, the black death metal band Gevera. So I think from what I've heard and what I've read, it was all just a conflict of, finding somebody to distribute it and possibly just, having schedules align.
Okay. Well, that, I would not, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I wouldn't be shocked to find out that there is a deeper personal, emotional reason for this delay, because right off the bat, I'll just open by saying Stygian is powerful. This thing is emotionally complex, multi-layered. It is, from start to finish, this evil, miserable, stunning little record. It really does put the funeral in Funeral Doom. It just sounds fucking evil. Hello?
Oh, I'm still here.
Oh, shit. I thought you were going to chime in with something.
Oh, no. It cut out for a second, but I was still hearing what you were saying.
Okay, good to know. That's what hits me about this record right away, is that it's consistently in your face with how miserable and tortured it is. There are keyboards everywhere, these long, elongated passages of droning, muddy guitar and organs, and some of the deepest vocals I think I've heard in a long, long time. Like, if you told me that, like, a swamp creature performed on this, I might have believed you.
Oh, yeah. It's just so, you're right on the money, man. It's just like, I think if you're not conjuring something inhuman in your Funeral Doom, then, it's like, what are you really doing? It's you're just cosplaying.
The next time if there's ever an anime convention in town, Lord knows there won't be for a while, I'm gonna cosplay as Funeral Doom and do exactly that.
Oh, hell yeah. Just dress up in a black bathrobe and just have like a little placard that says, "I am Funeral Doom."
Actually, true to my analogy, I will dress up as Swamp Thing playing Funeral Doom. I've got it all figured out now.
Yes.
I've got it all figured out now. Hell yeah.
There we go.
And Funeral Doom is it's not a particularly immediate genre by default. It is inherently quite lethargic, monotonous. It requires immense patience, and so does this record. I don't think there's any arguing otherwise. And yet it feels so immediate. Like, it just grabs you right off the bat, despite being such a long, droning, and calculated affair.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I think, that's, I think I remember reading something where, I actually have it right here. So a couple years ago, Decibel did a 100 greatest doom metal releases of all time list. And the farthest up a Funeral Doom record got was actually a record that is a profound influence on this one, and that being the 1994 album Stream from the Heavens by the band Thergothan, which is their only record, by the way. But I think it says somewhere, if I can, it says, in the lantern-lit netherworlds of Funeral Doom, melancholy and depression are the raison d'etre, and for those of us hardwired for rapturous misery and unabashed woe, Thergothan is an institution. So it's like, you already have to be a pretty miserable person, like you said, to like embrace this lethargy and this just overpowering sense of like darkness that comes with the territory.
In many ways, this entire genre is a polar opposite of what we normally expect and define of metal. Like, when people typically think heavy metal, they're typically thinking of Judas Priest, Metallica, and they're thinking big riffs, big hooks, people drinking beer, having fun. Funeral Doom is the exact opposite of that in every single way. It is a genre meant for people who are not well adjusted and maybe a little fucked in the head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you tell all your friends at a party you're gonna throw on I don't know, like what is it, Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, where he it's like the pseudo version of Tim Ripper Owens joining Judas Priest, but then you throw on Salo, 120 Days of Sodom, and everybody's like, what did you just do?
Honestly. God, you know what? I know friends that are fucked up enough that they would probably put on Salo at a party, though. Unfortunately.
Oh, gosh.
I know, and unfortunately, I'm almost disappointed to say I know them. They know who they are when they fucking hear this, too. They'll know exactly who they are, and they'll call this out, and they'll be like, hell yeah, what are you doing Friday night, man?
They'll get all the homies together to watch it.
Yeah, we'll listen to Atramentus and watch Salo.
Oh, jeez.
That'll be a depressing party. Oh my god.
Yeah, bring your Zoloft, because I think you might need it afterwards.
Yeah, I might need a lot of things after all that. My god.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Did you by chance have the lyric sheets from $20 Spin?
Yes, I do. I pre-ordered this I think I will admit that I did get up a little bit early in the day. No. I'm trying to remember how. I may have either taken a bathroom break from my one job that I do where I work at a mixed soda shop, and I literally cannot step away for a moment because just so happens our store is the busiest and highest earning store in the company. I barely have time to step away from doing anything. We can't have our phones on us, or I either woke up and pre-ordered it, but I was able to get it about a week ago, but before that, Phil had sent me the lyrics for it, and going through this.
He had personally sent you the lyrics?
Yes, Phil. I just hit him up and I just said, hey, Phil, as I'm reviewing this, since I know that this is a concept album, is there any way that you can send me the lyrics in a PDF or whatever? And he's like, yeah, dude, I'll send it to you. And so he just sent me basically what is the entire booklet that comes in the LP copy.
Oh wow. Damn, I didn't realize it was that bloody easy. All right, Phil, I'm gonna be talking to. I'm gonna get in contact with you because I have, as much as I trust you, Tyson, I might still have many more questions after all this.
Yeah, it's that's one of the beauties of having having the vinyl copy of this record, especially, is because it's there's just something it's very fulfilling being able to listen to the record, but also follow along as if it were the Funeral Doom version of a Dungeons and Dragons quest. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's always my big thing, and this isn't really Atramentus' fault. It's more the fault of the concept album format and how concept albums are interpreted in extreme music. It's hard for me to follow a story when I can't tell what's happening, and as invested as I am in the music of this, the story is where I was kind of I guess we're wandering through a mountain range? I don't know, and there could be a swamp creature, certainly sounds like it. So I was, if you wouldn't mind actually giving me a little insight into the actual concept with the lyric sheet.
Yeah, of course. So the way it all starts is okay, so when I wrote this review for Heaviest of Art, the way I kind of approached the way that this is, because I really had to restrain myself from fully diving into the lore, because it's just really, really dense. I didn't want to do it simply because I didn't want somebody to start reading this, get interested, and then be like, oh, I didn't want to read this review and end up reading a fucking novel.
I get that. I mean, I can even tell by the few things I have seen that it is very dense. I'm even looking at this description on Bandcamp here, and it's it looks like the intro to it looks like what you would find on the inside of a novel, that little inside flap.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at, granted immortality through the gift of the god's sword, the nameless knight, and it just goes on for, 2 or 3 paragraphs here, and I'm like, my god.
Yeah.
That's kind of intimidating, honestly.
Yeah, and it really is, and that's kind of where it piqued my interest a little bit more, because Phil had hinted that he was because he and I had talked back and forth about how much we love this German-French funeral doom band called Worship, who put out a demo in 1999 called Last Tape Before Doomsday, and it is probably one of the, if not the most depressing album ever made. I mean, their drummer vocalist Max Wagner literally took his words to heart, because unfortunately a few years after the release of Last Tape Before Doomsday, he would end up taking his own life.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, and there's, like, the tape copies that both Phil and I have are both vastly different. He has one that was kind of a shittier dub, where in the background there's, like, the faint noises of, like, Arabic music in the background, whereas mine is a bootlegged copy, and it has a Xerox cover, but it's way different than his, in that on his, the tape insert is like a cathedral, whereas mine has a mushroom cloud on it, but then included in there in the flap of the J card is instructions on how to commit suicide with a razor blade, and it came with a razor blade as well.
Holy shit.
Yes.
That is without a doubt the most depressing thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, so, but anywho, the whole thing is, he and I were kind of just talking about how Worship, like, are just, like, amazing. You know, when they came out, it was just two guys doing what they wanted to do. They wanted to create some of the most nihilistic doom ever. And so then he told me that he had this project lined up, but he didn't tell me it was going to be a concept record. And so when finding out it was a concept album, I was like, okay, this is going to be like something a little bit more in my own little sphere, more engaging. But, like, when going through Heaviest of Art and writing my review for it, the only thing I can really, like, condense it down for somebody is basically saying that it has a lot of ties to a lot of Western literature, like things like, you know, the Divine Comedy. There's bits from certain lyric, like, thematical and philosophical concepts that are explored in the Brothers Karamazov and War and Peace. There's bits that are, like, little slight homages to certain passages and stories in the Old Testament and the Silmarillion, and even a little taking tiny bits and putting a more nihilistic spin on the narrative that Joseph Campbell talks about in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is, like, you know, that was pretty much the entire guidepost for George Lucas in creating Star Wars.
Did you say the Silmarillion by chance?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I was about to say, the one thing I picked up through this record is I felt a distinctly Tolkien vibe, like, in the atmosphere and in the presentation. But I wasn't sure, like, what specifically. I'm like, this seems way too brutal to just say The Lord of the Rings or something. Like, this is... Like, if this were The Lord of the Rings, I don't know, I feel like I'd be hearing a little bit more riffery, a little bit more enthusiasm and vigor, whereas this is just, like, dread. This is the alternate universe where Sauron wins and he destroys the world.
Oh, yeah. Like, this is, like, because the way it even begins, it's very, you know, Book of Genesis, opening of the Silmarillion, talking about, like, there being a creation and there being forces of light and forces of chaos that kind of coalesce, similar to God and Lucifer, and obviously Arda, and who would eventually be the other malevolent deity, Morgoth, who would come and, you know, in the Silmarillion. But that's kind of how the way this starts. But then it also kind of goes in a direction similar to the novel The Once and Future King, which is kind of a different spin on the Arthurian legend, kind of with this knight trying to claim this sword that is very much also, it's like a sentient sword almost, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also very, I don't know how to really explain it, because the lyric sheet is just very, like, wrapped up in its own distinct story.
It's like the Atramentus cinematic universe, eh? Just like all this material that I have to sink into.
Yeah, like I mean, it like the thing is if this wasn't already in the popular lexicon of being a heavy metal record, if somebody pitched this to like an indie studio to make this into like a short film, I feel like it would be something that would stick with people. It could be like one of those weird things that premieres as like a midnight feature at like Sundance or South by Southwest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's very, but but it's also very much in the realm of, okay, you kind of have to be like, Mike, Lucas, and Dustin and Will from Stranger Things to really fully embrace what's going on.
You know what? That's actually a great way of putting it, because I mean, those kids so obsessed in their little worlds. This is a record, I mean, in general, but especially conceptually, demands your attention and demands that you pay attention. It's not, I would say this more so than any other Funeral Doom record I've heard in recent memory, cannot be played casually in any setting whatsoever. And I think even Phil agrees with that, because I remember him saying something along those lines in like a press release somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would absolutely agree. Like it's like I said again, you're not going to be at a party and throw on the most like the most like complex film or complex piece of music. You're not going to throw on something that's really, you're going to throw on something that's going to, it's like I always say, like when I'm at work and I want to play music for everybody's like, you're just going to play all your heavy metal stuff. I'm like, no, come on, people. I know my audience. And that's the thing, is like, I think Phil understands that there are people who love his music that are, obviously who are into Cathilist. People who, listen to Cathilist will, trace back to listening to Demolic. They'll listen to like early Gorguts, and then eventually they'll say, okay, well, I like this stuff. And then what's further, they'll find bands like Convulse. They'll find then Rippikulu, which are a huge bands from Finland like this. Then you find bands from Finland like Vergothen. You find Skepticism, who are, considered the godfathers of Funeral Doom. And you're 100% right. This is a record that can't be played casually. It does, like most Funeral Doom records and things within this genre, you have to have like an immense amount of concentration, but also you kind of have to have that mood to just be like, okay, I just need to be washed over.
At the same time, though, and this goes back to what I said in the beginning here, this was a lot easier for me to sink my teeth in than other Funeral Doom records, because, yeah, I mean, yes, it's still very difficult and it's still very lethargic and monotonous and blah, 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 all those things I said. But musically, there's a lot more going on than just strictly Funeral Doom, and that does a lot in helping me stay with the record. I mean, on top of obvious influences from the other shades of doom metal, like traditional doom metal, death doom, epic doom metal, I'm also seeing a lot of influence from gothic metal. I'm seeing influences from progressive and dark ambient. I'm seeing influences from black metal in the album's final moments, as it almost turns into like a fucking Emperor song with the keyboards and the strings and the ferocious tremolo riffs. It's rare that I see a Funeral Doom record with such a broad creative palette at its disposal.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's where I think, I had a feeling like, okay, people who definitely are already into this genre will probably like it, but then after exploring it, it's like, okay, I can kind of see how, like you said, there's people who aren't super into Funeral Doom, but will find something within this record that will captivate them. Like, there's going to be people who have only recently got into Funeral Doom because of listening to bands like Bell Witch, or maybe a band like, who are newer, like Hell or Mizmor. they'll listen to them and really get the gist of it. But at the same time, they'll also love coming from the side of hearing the triumphantness, like you said, of hearing stuff that's, more rooted in stuff that you could hear from the gothic side of the spectrum or from the more progressive side. Because, I mean, hell, in the lyric sheet, if I'm not mistaken, they thank, this is what's crazy, after a whole bunch of like funeral doom bands, and like other doom bands, they thank guitar virtuosos like Tony McAlpine, Joey Tafola, Jason Becker, and Yngwie Malmsteen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and when you have a thanks list like that, it's like, well, what are they trying to get out here? What are they trying to pull? Because there's usually within funeral doom, it is kind of like in its own respect, it's kind of like black metal in that the rules are kind of orthodox. You can't really, it's kind of hard to draw outside the lines, but when you do and you kind of take risks, it can pay off.
I imagine that to some extent funeral doom fans are a little bit more patient and lenient than your average black metal fan, though.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There are guys who, there's that meme floating around about like, I own raw black metal demos worth more than your life. It's like, I don't go around saying, oh yeah, my worship tape came with a razor blade. I'm way more cult than you.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, that's I'm not even gonna bother stepping into that, but that's definitely its own thing. But you are right though. Funeral doom is expected to sound and feel a certain way, and this record very much still does feel and sound those ways. But it also feels bigger. It feels bolder. It's more mature. It's more ambitious. It's more progressive. It's more captivating. I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate the shit out of Bell Witch and all the other acts you've mentioned, but none of them have quite drawn me into this world the way that Atramentus has with Stygian. In fact, yeah. And I'm even gonna, I'll just go ahead and say it. In the past, when I've come across a genre I've disliked, I can usually look back to one record that kind of helped change my mind. With black metal, it was Death Heaven's Sunbather. With metalcore, it was I Am King from Code Orange. And with Funeral Doom, it's Stygian, Atramentus. Like, it's almost as if a light bulb has gone off in my head, and I'm like, I get it now. Or at least I want to get it now.
And it's like, it's at that point where you kind of are like, okay, well, now that I've kind of found a base from where I can branch off from, where can I find stuff that goes elsewhere?
Oh yeah, I mean this makes me super excited to dig into all of the bands that Atramentus is inspired by, and for that matter all of the other projects that Phil is in that perhaps have similar shades of darkness and atmosphere to them, and Lord knows that'll be a long list, because holy crap, there's like 20 million bands here. I mean
yeah, no kidding.
Like, this is, it almost feels weird to say, but this does make kind of a fascinating entry point for Funeral Doom for people that maybe aren't initiated with the genre or just aren't overall all that interested. Like, I would give this to them and go, give it a shot. Just really sit down and absorb this thing.
Yes, and like, it's almost because I think the way that the way Bell Witch ascended with Mirror Reaper, I think a lot of people who were like kind of the more hardcore Funeral Doom fans were kind of just like, oh my gosh, people are starting to get into it now because of the hype behind a single song album. But I think now that people have kind of softened more to that, and now that this album has come out, I think that's the entry point. Is it's not going to alienate people who have been listening to Funeral Doom since hearing Thergothan and Mournful Congregation for the first time, because it has those roots. But at the same time, it's going to draw in those people who are looking for something darker, but they are also willing to have different flavors mixed in and different little bits and pieces that would not normally attract them to a completely earth-shattering record like Angels of Distress by Shape of Despair would, where it's just constant, overwhelming darkness through riffing. It's just with Atramentus, it's very much a whole different ball game. I guess I could say.
Mm-hmm. And even just from a production standpoint as well, I'm amazed at how well organized everything is. Like, I can hear the bass, I can hear every single keyboard note, be it the synthesizers, the organs, the pianos. That, by the way, is amazing. I've never heard so many types of keyboards on one metal record. I can hear every single strum of the guitar. I can hear his fingers scraping against the strings. I love little authentic touches like that. It just makes it feel all the more powerful and heartfelt. And at the same time, it's never overwhelming. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but never to the point where you're like, shit, I need to take a break. We need to pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's production-wise, I would argue that this, production-wise alone, this is kind of a 5 out of 5 record. Like, holy crap. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that they were able to enlist the help of some Funeral Doom royalty to help produce this, and that was Greg Chandler from the UK Funeral Doom band Esoteric, who released a record back in what year did that come out? I think it came out around 1994. That if you listen to that record, it's called Epistemological Despondency. That has a lot of the same kind of mixing and mastering gargantuan feeling that Stygian has. And I think that's, having somebody who already knows how to produce something like this definitely would help. Because I feel like if they went to a guy like, I don't know, Greg Wilkinson at Earhammer, who has done records for Vastum, Fetid, and Cerebral Rot and stuff like that, I feel like it wouldn't have worked. Or if they had gone to a guy like Kurt Ballou, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, it definitely would have been interesting, but it also wouldn't have fit with that. You'd get something a lot more grisly, a lot more stark, whereas the writing demands something kind of lush and dramatic and beautiful, which are things that, you have to when you have these keyboards, these organs, and all these different parts, all these different layers, all these different vocal harmonies and vocal textures.
Yeah,
like you can't just go for the standard super metallic guitar and big ass fucking drum sound. You just can't.
Yeah, you can't just have somebody walk into the studio and be like, "All right, crank on that line 6 and put it onto the insane setting.
Turn it up to 11. End of story. We're done here."
Yeah,
we're gonna Rick Rubin the fuck out of this. Just loudness war.
Oh boy, just hearing that name gives me like Vietnam flashbacks of listening to Death Magnetic.
Oh god, honestly, that it's just the audio on that thing clips all the time. It's unreal. You know what's worse though, or at least I find it worse, and everyone fucking loves this album? I cannot listen to Californication from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, the bass and the drums are so goddamn loud on that thing, it is legitimately annoying.
Yeah, I think they probably all got tinnitus from listening to that.
Oh yeah,
like when it's getting mastered.
And you know what's weird is that there was a time when he was probably the music producer. I mean, he produced records for Beastie Boys, Johnny Cash, Danzig, Slayer. He didn't give a fuck. He did what he wanted, and he was good at his job. And then, like, as the years went on, it was just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and his production techniques got more and more complicated. Like, Muse and Slipknot have both shared some very interesting stories about what it was like to work with Rick Rubin, and God damn it, I'm getting off topic now.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
The point is, a regular rock metal producer would not have worked for Atramentus, and congratulations to everyone who worked behind the scenes on this.
Yes, I 100% agree. I mean, and it's interesting too, the fact that as much as this was, a big effort, I mean, like you said, Robert, like this thing was pretty much laying on the cutting room floor for an entire fucking decade. I mean, at the time that this was recorded, I mean, hell, I think I was entering my sophomore year of high school when this was like in its infancy, in its embryonic stages. And now I'm an adult, and it sounds like, if you go back and listen to records from around 2010, nobody was really trying to make this sound until, obviously groups like Yob and Pallbearer had really brought
Oh my
doom.
God, I never even thought of that. Yeah, if he wrote this in 2010, then Phil was way ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
because I think Yob had a couple records out by that point. You mentioned Yob, but I don't think they were anything nearly as progressive or as heavy as what we're seeing here.
Yeah, obviously around this time, you had guys who are in Funeral Doom. Obviously Disembowelment never had gone anywhere. They never played live, never done anything. Around that time, Evoken had only recently put out an album around 2010-ish, which was their album Caress of the Void. So Phil was basically 1 year ahead, or 2 years ahead, of Evoken releasing what I consider their magnum opus, which is Atramentus, which came out in 2012. He predated Pallbearer. He predated Bellwitch. He predated most of the really big names in Doom. But the only bad thing was he just got so busy with what he was doing elsewhere that I think if this album had come out during 2012, 2013, it probably would have gotten a lot of critical acclaim. But
do you think if this album had come out, let's say 2012, right after when it was written and recorded and assembled, do you think that maybe they would have become the modern poster boys for doom metal in the way that Yob and Pallbearer have?
Yes and no, because again, I think the thing that draws a lot of people to Yob is the fact that their identity is strictly within. Because I think the one thing that separates them definitely is Yob. Mike from Yob grew up as more of a crust punk kid, but then seeing Cathedral literally changed his life. When he saw Cathedral open for Brutal Truth, Napalm Death, and Carcass, that completely changed his life. And they take more of that mantric kind of Alan Watts inspired area of Doom, and that's kind of been their bread and butter for the better part of almost 20 years. Whereas I feel the one thing that draws people to Pallbearer, and especially myself, because I think gun into my head, I would say Pallbearer are my favorite band of all time. I think the one thing about Pallbearer is their knack for being able to create such, depressingly crushing heavy songs, but they're also able to imbue them with a sense of melodicism and a sense of grabbing from an area of progressive music, especially in the area of King Crimson or a band like Yes or even Genesis, and imbuing that into their sound. But if Atramentus had come out around that time, it probably would have garnered a lot of attention, like it is currently doing. But at the same time, I feel like it would have been very difficult because I feel like as much as of a Pallbearer fan as I am, I have to acknowledge that, and I feel like a lot of people acknowledge this too, is like 2012, once Sorrow and Extinction came out, that was pretty much ground zero for where doom metal really entered the public consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Because at that point I was only starting to get into doom metal, and I remember people sending me Pallbearer, and like they were a big fucking deal, still are for that matter. I mean, the new album comes out October, and it's probably one of the most anticipated albums of the year, I would say, for a vast majority of heavy music listeners.
Yeah, it's been a long fucking 3 years.
I don't know about that. I mean, I've been listening to their last album enough that I'm like, man, they can take all the time they need. I'm good.
Mm-hmm. And then teasing us with 2 great singles has just been like, oh, just do it already.
That's true, too. It's just kind of like, especially with that first single, I was like, damn, this is a good song.
Yeah.
Damn, this is... Yeah. Just put the fucking thing out. End of story.
Yeah. And that's where I think, like, obviously, that's where, you know, Pallbearer can definitely come into the public's area of, like, being heralded and, you know, being played on, like, NPR and stuff like that. Whereas with Atramentus, definitely get the kind of, the kind of written recognition of what they have achieved. But if they did, that's the other thing too, is like coming from more of the what if side. If they did, I wouldn't even argue that if they did, they probably would have influenced way more people to come out and start playing Funeral Doom, because Funeral Doom is starting to get more and more, I don't want to sound weird, but there's not a whole lot of bands playing a funeral, like pure Funeral Doom, like Atramentus are trying to do. More and more bands are trying to delve more into trying to
like kind of the Bell Witch style because of Mirror Reaper.
Well, that's the thing too, is the way Bell Witch started, they were more influenced by like early sludge stuff like Corrupted and Noothgrush, playing Funeral Doom. But when you listen to like the contrast between Longing, their first record, and Mirror Reaper, it's almost a complete difference. Like listening to Longing is like hearing a band like I Hate God attempting to play a really long, drawn-out noise set.
Damn.
Whereas listening to Mirror Reaper, it's like, oh my hell, this is the long-lost Asunder record that should have followed Works Will Come Undone. There's definitely a bloodline that of refinement. Whereas with Atramentus, you know, you can hear the sounds of those early influences like Asunder. You can hear it, the Thurgothan influence. But I think in the way that more bands are like coming into Funeral Doom now, they're trying to bring in what I'm calling, you know, now more of that incantation core sound. You know, they're trying to bring in as much death metal influence into Funeral Doom as possible, which was never the intention when those bands first started. They wanted to make something the complete polar opposite of what death metal was. You know, guys like Skepticism, who had been in bands like that, they just wanted to create a literal tidal wave of sound.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like there are those things that, you know, again, Atramentus, if they'd come out during that early period of the 2010s, they probably could have influenced a lot more people to, you know, pick up and start listening to those Skepticism and Ahab records. But I think it's going to, you know, spark something different.
And with that in mind, I am curious to see going forward if this proves to be influential to Funeral Doom going forward. Like, how many new bands are going to look back on this and go, wow. Because, I mean, you look at the comment section for any Atramentus-related video on the $20 Spend channel, and there are tons of comments where people are just like, yeah, I don't even like Funeral Doom, and I like this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see what happens going forward for the band. I got. You ready to hear something crazy, buddy?
Yes, I am.
This is officially the longest album review I've ever done in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Because this I've been recording. Granted, I don't know if the final video will be this long because I might have to edit out little bits in the beginning. But as of now, we've been recording for about 56 minutes.
Ooh.
Yeah. And granted, when I do make these videos, they're a lot longer than what they look like on YouTube. But the benefit of how I normally do them is I can edit out all kinds of stuff. I can't do that here. So, just to make sure that this doesn't run up to an hour, I think it's high time we started to wrap this up.
Totally. Understandable.
Would you like to give your verdict first, or should I go first?
You go ahead. This is your channel. I think you give the first verdict.
Okay, sounds good to me. This album, as I said before, ladies and gentlemen, this album has done for me what Sunbather did for... Shit, I feel like I gotta start that all over again. This album... This album is my gateway to Funeral Doom. That's honestly how I feel right now. I mean, I've known about this genre for years. I've appreciated and respected it from afar, but this is the first time I've really sunk my teeth into a record like this and so thoroughly enjoyed it. Enjoyed it, relatively speaking, because holy shit is this depressing. The production on this is fantastic. The musicianship is fantastic. The vocals are amazing. I love all of the vocal harmonies. I love the extreme influences. I love the progressive influences. This is a side of Funeral Doom I feel like I haven't really seen before. Maybe it's been out there and I've just been ignorant, but whatever the case may be, I'm now more excited to learn than ever before after listening to Stygian. I was going to go with a 4 out of 5 initially, but after sitting here talking to you more about this and learning more about the concept and everything that went into it, I feel pretty comfortable giving this a really good 4.5 out of 5. My only thing I will add is I did personally have some issues regarding pacing for this album. I accept that this is more of a personal issue than an issue with Stygian. That said, this album still never lost my attention. I never felt the need to skip forward. If anything, it was like watching a great thriller at a certain point, where I was just like on the edge of my seat waiting for the next big moment to show up, the next big set piece. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 from me. What about you, good sir?
You know, I think with this year, as I've said a few times on social media, and you can definitely back this up. This year has been kind of a year where I've stepped back from listening to a lot of death metal, where last year was like a lot of death metal. I think nearly my entire 2019 was death metal. Mm-hmm. But going back and going through Doom again, and you know, discovering records by certain different artists that I never had really dove into, I think going into this album with more of a concentration and effort with the stuff that I had been more imbued with before, I went into this record with a lot of excitement, and I left it feeling like I had just listened to the first like it was like the first time I'd listened to a Funeral Doom record, which funny enough was introduced to me, like Funeral Doom was first officially introduced to me through Mournful Congregation's The Monad of Creation, and that was recommended to me by none other than Pallbearer bassist Joseph Rowland. And the first time I listened to that record, it was just, you know, the slow motion majesty was incredible. And with Stygian, it was just listening to that. It was like listening to the Monad of Creation again for the first time. It was like listening to Stormcrow Fleet or the Call of the Wretched Sea for the very first time all over again. It's something that, you know, you are grabbed instantly by the concept of what Stygian is. But when you hear how it begins with those just titanic opening piano crashes, you immediately know that your time has come in a way. And it's something that in a year where I've seen a lot of really great records come through, like the new ones from Catatonia, the new ones from Paradise Lost and the return of some bands like Cirith Ungol, who are a very big name in Doom. I at this point in this year, even though we haven't gotten the new Pallbearer record yet, I at this point personally feel. Oh, go ahead. What?
I think I already know what you're about to say, but you can go ahead and say it.
I think for me personally, this just might be my album of the year. Solely from the standpoint of the way I've always looked at albums of the year in my past, whether it was in 2014, mine was Pallbearer's Foundations of Burden, and then in 2017, because I wasn't able to be around for 15 and 16 due to certain reasons. 17, it was Reflections of a Floating World. 18, it was Idle by Horrendous. Last year was Crypt Sermon's record. I think the one thing, and which is ironic considering this is a Funeral Doom record, it's something that you can put on at any time and be willing to sit and listen to it all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, this is something that it can be a gateway for people, and it is a gateway. And I think that is, I don't feel like that's a backhanded compliment at all with something like this. If anything, if it can get you into a genre like this, then I say bravo.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be honest, especially when metal is in general not the most accessible, especially not when you get to these very extreme subgenres. So if you can create a gateway album for something like Funeral Doom, that is a compliment. That is, like, I would be honored if I made some like disgusting blackened doom whatever the fuck music and somebody was like, this is what got me into this style of music. I would be honored, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, if somebody who's into ambient music loves like stuff like Brian Eno and Lustmord, and they're like, well, I want to get into Funeral Doom because I can handle stuff that goes forever. Here you go. Here's this album.
Mm-hmm.
There's your gateway. This is the way you can, to quote The Mandalorian, this is the way.
Yeah. and I think it's safe to say that a lot of people are going to share the sentiment that you have, because the praise we've seen for this it's endless at this point. Not that it's not it's absolutely well deserved. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if I can personally also call this an album of the year contender, but it definitely doesn't hurt that this literally introduced me to a genre that I've previously almost outright ignored. So we'll see at the end of the year, but for now, this is definitely something I'm gonna probably pick this up on vinyl. If I can't I doubt it'll be at my local record store, so I'll order it online. And I'm excited to continue digging into this record and finding new things, because that to me is also what makes an amazing record. Not just when you sit down and you just absorb it, but when you find new things every single time. Some of my favorite records that already this year are records that are incredibly dense and multi-layered, and every time I'm listening to them, it's like peeling back a layer and discovering something new, like Fluid Existential Inversions from Intronaut, or the new Aranti Pazuzu record, for that matter, And this...
I was going to say, there's... That Intronaut record is just like, that's something that... You listen to it over and over, and it's just, so good.
I find it weirdly catchy. Like, I've got songs jammed in my head, and maybe it's just because I've listened to it an ungodly amount of times, but... God, I mean, that album, along with, I would say, probably Underneath Code Orange, are probably the two most played records so far this year. For me, they're just jammed in my head. I got nothing else to say about this album. Anything else from you?
Not that I can think of, except, if you want to snag it, I mean, the first two colored pressings are already gone, but the 20bucks been announced a third color variant. And I am feeling after this album drops and everybody's able to hear it, aside if they hadn't already heard it from it being put on YouTube, it's gonna be something you want to act quick on, because I have a feeling this is gonna end up being a Mirror Reaper situation where in the next 7 or 8 months, a first pressing is going to go for ungodly amounts of money.
Shit, you know what? You might be right. I'm actually just gonna go ahead and open the $20 spin page right now and make sure it's all there.
Yeah, I imagine it will be. I mean, right now they're already kind of, putting more of the attention on the upcoming goodness that is the Spirit Adrift record upcoming. Which
oh my god!
I can already tell you, it's it's fucking great.
Have you heard the whole thing?
Yes,
God.
I don't want to flex, but the day that the pre-orders went up, Nate, because I've known Nate for a couple of years now. He just messaged me on Instagram and he's like, "Hey man, can I get your email?" I said, "Oh sure." And then through $20 Spin's publicist, I was able to get a promo copy of the record. And
I am so jealous,
dude. You're gonna be all over this thing.
I mean, I love the shit out of that promo single. I don't think I've ever pre-ordered a record quite that fast. I was just like, hell yes, bring it on.
I had to support, and I picked up all 3 variants.
Whoa! Okay, wow. Damn.
That's my guy right there. Nate's a homie. I saw him, the first time I met him was actually when my buddy Jake and I went and saw them play at a small bar in Tempe, Arizona. It was their record release show for Curse of Conception, and it was they mostly played material off of Chained to Oblivion, but it was an incredible night, and ever since then I had never missed a hometown Spirit Adrift show until I moved to Utah. But when they did their record release show last year for Divided by Darkness, I said, fuck it, I'm flying home to see this.
Damn. Oh my god. Alright, I'm gonna take advantage of this newfound connection. Nate, hi, my name's Robert. Tyson is both of our friends. Maybe you should hit me up too.
Hey, I'll connect you, dude. I can definitely be like, hey, I've got a buddy that wants to hear this new album. And he can be trusted. Would you be willing to send him a promo?
Oh, I can't wait to send it to all of my friends. I mean, quietly listen to it by myself.
just know that when you listen to it, dude, you're gonna want to listen to it as loud as possible, because it's so good.
I'm
That's
pumped,
all I'm
man.
gonna say. I don't want to go any further than that.
Yeah.
It's
we can discuss
also,
more. We can discuss more of this potential Spirit Adrift nonsense when we're not recording.
Yes. Yes, dude. If any closing things on Atramentus, anybody who hasn't heard it yet, go fucking buy it.
Do it.
Go listen to it.
Do it. I'm not sure
Support
when, but by the time this review goes up, whether it's tomorrow or whatever, the album will be out. There's no excuse not to listen to it, even if you're just casually interested. Listen to it.
And just like the guys in Atramentus, support my man here, because Canadians, as of right now, Canadians are doing it better.
We are. We rule. If y'all love death metal, you can thank Canada for it. All right, not Florida, because it wasn't Florida who gave you Gorguts and Cryptopsy. It was us. Canada gave you Voivod. Canada gave you Devin Townsend. You're welcome.
Canada gave us war metal.
Yes. We gave you Panzerfaust. We gave you Beyond Creation. We gave you Rush. We gave you Rush.
That enough. That's enough to warrant greatness.
Honestly,
if not,
we don't have a Five-Finger Death Punch. We have Rush.
You guys gave us Blasphemy. You guys gave us so many great things, but then y'all did give us Nickelback though. But in retrospect, that the good definitely outweighs that immensely.
Yeah, I guess we kind of did. All right, minor apologies there, folks. Minor apologies. Minor apologies. I'll tell you this though, I'd rather listen to fucking Nickelback over Five Finger Death Punch any day of the week.
Yeah.
That's not even a difficult decision for me.
Yeah. I mean, at least Nickelback is memeable.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I still laugh at fucking what the hell is on Joey's head and shit like that.
Oh, look at this graph.
Yeah, honestly. And fucking, what was the song from the Spider-Man movie? It's such a meme. There's a hero to save us.
I'm not going to stand
your way. With that Dimebag Daryl lookalike in the background, he's going, watching.
Oh, yes. Oh, it's that dude from freaking Saliva.
Oh, is that who that is?
Yeah, it's Josie Scott from Saliva.
Oh my god, that's you know what? I don't apologize for Nickelback anymore. You're welcome, world.
You know, to be honest though, I've never been a fan of Nickelback, but for some reason, that song has always kind of like held some small nostalgia for me, because I remember seeing that first Spider-Man movie in the theater.
Oh yeah, I remember it too, man. If I'm not mistaken, didn't it play in the movie at some point?
Yeah, it plays during the end credits.
Hell yeah. Alright, now I'm gonna go watch Spider-Man.
Hell yes.
Thank you very much for joining us here, Tyson. It's been this has been a fascinating chat. I don't even know if I can call this an album review. It's gonna be a discussion in Funeral Doom featuring Atramentus and TyTilly.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
That's the point.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us again. Phil, I'm just gonna reach out directly. I'd love to talk to you about this record. Nate as well, since Spirit Adrift came up. I'd love to just talk to you in general. I don't know. If y'all like what you saw here today, what you heard here today, I should say, press like, comment, and subscribe. Go support the hell out of Atramentus. Go support the shit out of Spirit Adrift. Go support the shit out of TyTilly. Follow him on Instagram. The dude posts vinyl nonstop, and he's also on Heaviest of Art. They're rad. One of the few metal publications that doesn't go, riff big, me like, 10 out of 10. And yeah, that's it for me. Y'all have yourselves a fantastic fucking day.